You know that one movie that plays on every single channel every Christmas, no matter what. That green, hairy, cave-dwelling grouch who hates the holidays and somehow ends up being everyone's favorite part of them? Yeah, that movie is getting a sequel, and Jim Carrey is coming back. Let that sink in. Because here's what makes this genuinely shocking. Jim Carrey has been saying no to this sequel for over 20 years. So what changed? Let's get into it. Just today, TMZ confirmed that Jim Carrey is expected to return for a sequel to How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the 2000 live-action blockbuster that made over $345 million worldwide and never left the holiday rotation. And it's not just Jim. Director Ron Howard and producer Brian Grazer, the exact same team from the original, are also back at Universal. This isn't a reboot. This isn't a reimagining with a different cast. This is the original crew, reuniting 26 years later. But to understand why this is such a big deal, you need to understand why it almost never happened. If you've seen any behind-the-scenes footage from the original Grinch, you already know. But if you haven't, the makeup process alone took 8.5 hours every single day. Jim had to undergo psychological conditioning, the kind they use for torture resistance training, just to cope with being covered in green yak hair and prosthetics under hot studio lights for months. He later described it as one of the most physically and mentally brutal experiences of his entire career. So when Universal came knocking for a sequel over the years, Jim's answer was always some version of hard pass, which makes today's news genuinely surprising. Something changed his mind. And honestly, it's probably two things. First, CGI. In 2000, making someone look like the Grinch meant 8 hours of makeup. Every single day. In 2026, motion capture and digital effects can achieve the same result, arguably better, without destroying the actor in the process. If Jim doesn't have to go through that physical nightmare anymore, the whole thing suddenly looks a lot more doable. Second, let's be real. Universal wrote a very big check. Jim Carrey's heart grew 3 sizes when he saw those numbers. Here's the part that has fans genuinely buzzing. It's currently unclear which original cast members are returning. And the biggest question mark is Taylor Momsen, who played Cindy Lou, who, after acting, she completely walked away from Hollywood and became the frontwoman of rock band The Pretty Reckless. Wildly successful, zero interest in looking back. But then, last year at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony, she and Jim Carrey had an unexpected reunion on stage. The internet reaction was insane. People were emotional about it in a way that felt like the universe quietly setting something up. If Universal is smart, they're calling her right now. Look, Hollywood makes sequels constantly. Most of them are instantly forgettable. So why should you care about this one? Because the original Grinch isn't just a movie. It's a cultural institution. It's the film you watched as a kid, that your parents watched with you, and that somehow still feels just as good every December. It has that rare quality of getting more beloved over time, not less. And Jim Carrey's performance, under all that makeup, through all that physical suffering, is one of the most committed comedic performances in holiday film history. Nobody else could have done what he did in that role. So the fact that he's willing to go back, that means something. The details are still coming: release date, full cast, plot. But one thing is already clear. Jim Carrey said no to this for 20 years. Ron Howard had moved on. Everyone assumed it was done. And yet, here we are. Think about what it actually takes for something like this to happen. A man who swore off a role because it nearly broke him, physically, mentally, looks back at it and says, you know what? Let's do it one more time. That's not a business decision. That's something personal. Something that tells you the original meant more to him than he ever let on publicly. And maybe that's the most Grinch thing about this whole story. The guy who pretended not to care, cared all along. Whether this sequel lives up to the original, nobody knows yet. Sequels to beloved classics are a gamble, always. But the people involved have too much to lose to be lazy about it. Ron Howard didn't build a career on sloppy work. And Jim Carrey isn't coming back to half-ass it. Christmas is about second chances, right? Well, the Grinch is getting one. And honestly, so are we.